Is that typical that they were responsible for that?
Yes. Yeah, it kind of depends. Sometimes, depending on the pond, every once in a while, the city will, it will be dedicated directly to the city, and then the city will be responsible for all maintenance. But generally, the developers want to keep those detention ponds within a lot, because that gives them the square footage they need. And so it shows as an easement, so the person has a buildable envelope, but they can't use their whole yard necessarily, but it still qualifies, it still makes the lot qualify, the lot's big enough to be a standard lot. So quite often, the maintenance, the stormwater ponds are an easement on a private lot, and then the maintenance is up to the private lot owner. And there's an agreement that when we get to final plat stage and get ready for recording, there's an agreement that we have the developers record that go along with the maintenance, so that people that are looking at that lot will know what they will be required of.
Okay. They just get a bigger yard.
They do.
Is there anyone else have any other questions for Scarlett?
I have a question. We've just got the Hampshire Park is the only park in the neighborhood. Is that adequate for a development this size?
Where they're on the very edge of our city, it's kind of difficult to pull one from somewhere else. I don't know that I would necessarily say it's adequate. I did not look at the distance from a couple of the Millville parks, but I'm pretty sure they would be in the level of service area for one of the parks in Millville. It's right there on 450 North, just east of Millville's Main Street. So, and we share our parks with Millville, and they begrudgingly share theirs with us.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where the closest one is, but you're right, there are 2 or 3 around there. There are some small ones, and then there are bigger ones on the school campuses right over there as well.
Mhm.
All right, Bob.
700 South is at the bottom of the plat, right?
Mhm.
And 700 South, does it go through yet, or is it still?
No,
Doesn't go through yet?
to the east, it's a private drive. So,
Okay.
So does that make it, we had an individual in here, who owns that private drive, I guess. Does this make it no longer a private drive?
no, it
Oh, it
doesn't
doesn't
connect.
connect, okay.
Can I ask a question? Or is it allowed, it's gonna connect here where this
Yes,
is?
that's
And
public.
this will be a third exit out, in or out
Mhm.
from that one, this one, and this one is just going, I
Yeah,
think it's really right after that is where it's fenced off now or something
yes.
like
In
that.
fact, that road right there that you're pointing to,
Yes,
that provides the emergency services turnaround for that area down there. So the private people do get a bit of a benefit from that.
yes. Okay. All right, any other questions? For Scarlett?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Joe, did you have anything?
No.
thank you.
Thank you, Scarlett. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We would invite the visionary representatives, Dallas and Josh, whoever you'd like, or both of you, if you would just come and state your name for the record and everything.
We're gonna tag team this currently.
Okay.
I'm Dallas Nickel and this is Josh Marble with Visionary.
Okay. I appreciate it. I think it all looks good to me from what I've looked at and seen. I had one question about the irrigation ditch that's right there at the north end of the property, that goes through there. I was out there, yesterday, and it looked like there was water running down that. I'm just curious if it is gonna be continued, or is it gonna stay? Is it gonna go away?
If you read through the comments from the staff, that's probably the design element that we're still working through.
Okay.
Certainly conquerable, but we do need to get with the irrigation company and figure out what ditches are still in use, what ditches have been abandoned. And yeah, certainly if it's still in use, we'll have to pipe it and daylight it somewhere, but,
Because it appears that it runs along the east line and then turns and comes down.
mhm.
That's what it's doing, because it's been abandoned up farther east than the other development.
Yeah, we,
On the south too.
and on the
Bad
south,
line down there.
Yeah,
yeah, the ditch on the south, it's several areas have been obviously
Right.
filled in, so it's
Right.
hard to imagine it still being in service, but,
I-
some of those ditches look like they do still carry water on
Yeah.
occasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be part of our design.
it was more puddled water through there, a little bit,
Right.
hardly nothing at all, really. So
Mhm.
it was right after the rain. So anyway, I was just curious about that.
Yeah,
And I like the lot sizes. So you've got some big lots there. Cause I think we approved it at 12,000 square feet
yeah,
lots.
yep, R112.
And our roadways, they're gonna be the
66
66
foot right away, right? Standard for the roads.
so a continuation of really what's there coming into.
That's right.
Okay.
To answer one question earlier about the pond on that lot, one other reason that we will put a pond on a building lot instead of its own parcel is that gets us away from having to have an HOA. If it's on its own parcel, then we have to have an HOA to maintain it. And we try to keep a mix of projects that have HOAs and some that don't, because there's people that are very passionate about not living in an HOA, so.
Yeah.
But this is one thing that has to happen, to not have an HOA, the pond's gotta live on somebody's lot, or the city has to take it, and I don't think there's any appetite for that. Is that true?
Would that indicate that there's no CCNRs on these lots?
That's correct.
And can you tell me again about the 700 south? So part of that is a private road, or that's a different? So is this not extending all the way?
To the highway?
Yes.
No, just along our
Just like-
property, we've got like 660 feet there that we own.
So it doesn't go either to the Highway 165 or to Second West. This connects to the other development that's there, but it doesn't go either way at this point. One, it will dead end into the USU property,
Uh-huh.
and the other one has a private road on the other side of the canal. So this road is currently, if it's good design, the future may build and connect and have connectivity. So we're adding it as connectivity, but it's currently,
It won't go all the way.
it doesn't.
It's a
Their
road to nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah, a road to the neighbor.
It ends like right here, just on the other side of the
Right.
plat, you
Okay.
can't see it, and the private drive is right here, that comes to the homes that are down here, so. Then there's a fence that separates
So
them.
there's a canal and fence that separate.
Okay.
And it's not a full width road, is that right? That's right. Yeah, we're improving our portion of the road.
So if future development comes, then they would be responsible for that side of it and so forth.
Yeah,
like-
that's right.
Like other developments. That
So-
sounds good.
Sorry, I thought you were.
No, you go right ahead.
So you said something that there's no CCNRs on it. You're gonna have CCNRs without having an HOA. though. You do plan on putting CCNRs on the property, or don't you?
So as the builder, we control what home gets built there, right? So we don't, the CCNR for the initial build is not really important to us to record CCNR because we control that, right? We get to pick what plans and what the finishes are. And so we control all of that without the CCNR. Once we leave, I mean, you know this, Joe, that once we leave, if there's no HOA, like there's no teeth to your CCNR, right? Nobody, so we generally would not record CCNR against these lots.
If they don't get passed on to the city.
That's why we wouldn't record CCNRs in this case is we kind of control what the homes look like anyway.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question, and it's not, super important. I'm just running numbers. So for the water rights, it shows 10.8 acre feet for indoor and 11.77 for outdoor. But typically irrigation is like 3, almost 4 times as much as indoor needs. What do you expect, you know, for the yards? Are you doing xeriscaping, just really small
No.
yards?
Obviously, you know, these are quarter acre plus lots up to almost a third, so they're just gonna be your regular yard, you know, there's gonna be mostly grass, RV park or RV pads. I don't have the numbers in front of me to know if there was a mistake in that, in those numbers, we can certainly rerun those numbers if.
Yeah,
see if
I
they're
can
in there.
maybe just check those, 'cause I'm,
Yeah, we're happy to do that.
irrigation is usually a
Yeah.
lot more acre feet than indoor.
Yeah, we'll look at that, you know, to make the application, we provide the numbers. As we move on, you know, the city obviously will check that, and if there is an error, they'll catch that, but yeah, we'll double check that number.
And I just have one more kind of question, if it's not necessarily, maybe pertaining to this
But she says it like that?
specific.
Put your vest on. Oh, scared I can go through you.
Oh, I was thinking maybe she was saying it's not really important, don't pay
No,
attention.
no. You know what it means.
But where you say you control the plans and you know, you gotta control the whole thing, and, you know, obviously we've had some contentious talks and discussions in here. Some of us just recently attended the Cash Summit. I don't know if you had representatives there or not.
Yep.
We're also working on amending our ADU code.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious if that's something you guys have ever considered, is maybe including some sort of ADUs in your plans? Maybe to kind of bridge that gap between, I mean, it's probably gonna be tough to get affordable housing, right? But
That's right.
maybe including an affordable housing option could be kind of a compromise. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, we're certainly interested in the ADU conversation. You know, Visionary's niche in the market is generally entry level and then one move up. Generally in that segment, you don't see a lot of ADUs because that just drives the price up, right? And with 8% interest, there's not a lot of, you know, we're stripping out a lot of things, and ADUs would be way outside of what most people are looking at right now. But we do try to provide, in more of our plans, we're trying to provide provisions to where people could add that. One of which would be like, yeah, you know, stairs on the outside, that's an option that they can offer, or that we offer, that they could you know, option up. Some of the plumbing in the basement, you know, we try to make plans so that people, it's easier for them to do a basement apartment, but that's all I would imagine we would be doing right here. And it really is, like you said, it's a pricing issue right now.
Yeah, I just wonder if more people would be, it's kind of could be a second income as well, and maybe bring that, you know, maybe make that a little bit more of a possibility.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, but people still have to qualify, right?
Right.
And that's the hurdle, so.
So these are entry level, but the lot size says they're a little bit bolder than.
These probably aren't entry level.
Okay.
I mean, you guys know that, like, it's to
It's
be
a lot of
on a
neighborhood.
12,000 square foot lot. Well, these are gonna be 550, I would guess, is probably a starting at these 500. So this probably falls more in the first move up segment of the market versus the entry level.
And would you consider, you know, peppering it about, for lack of a better term, and maybe putting in a few more affordable plans, you know, kind of within the neighborhood?
Well, yeah, and when we pick our offering, we do have a range of smaller footprints. You know, one of the best affordability plays someone can make is to not do a basement. You know, that knocks $40,000 off the house, right? So they can option that, you know, and that generally is if they pick our smallest footprint and they don't put a basement in it, that's really the affordability play in any development. But we can't, you know, we do offer a small home, for example, in West Logan. For us to put that home here, that screws up your ratios on your appraisals. So you can't get too far out of whack with putting too small of a home next to other homes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something to consider, just
No,
as a
yeah, I mean,
developer, you know, we're all trying
That's right.
to bring accessibility and affordability and you know?
Well, I mean, if we thought there was appetite for more density, we'd be asking for it, right? But we're not doing that tonight. We're not doing that tonight.
We had the previous proposal, which we did deny.
Right,
Right.
just
That
trying
was
to find compromises,
looking-
you know,
yeah.
how we can do that without,
Right.
you know, so much.
It's hard in a zone like this to have a big lot, cause we paid big lot price for the dirt, right? So
Yeah,
it-
yeah, that makes sense.
Those decisions, a lot of those are already baked in it when you buy it about what product you have to offer, so. But I appreciate.
Note, one other question, and I think this probably, you maybe just answered it, but, as a developer, do you ever consider, you know, putting in a bigger park, kind of making it, you know, taking one of your lots and maybe putting in a, you know, a little pocket park or something for the residents?
I mean, to be completely honest, in a subdivision like this, no, like that's not a consideration to give up a lot for a park.
It's
Like
price.
it wasn't ever on the drawing board. Now, you know, when you wanna talk LCR, yeah, you know, you get parks. Townhome communities, if we get other type of PUDs, you know, where we can cluster some of the density and get some open space, that's where you get parks. But in this zone, like I would, it'd be interesting to see in the city, has anybody ever voluntarily given up lots for a park?
Yeah, I'm not sure where
I mean, that's
Hampshire
kind of a
Park came
rhetorical
about.
question, but I doubt it's happening very often.
Was Hampshire Park city property originally? Do you know the history of that, Ryan?
I don't know, the ones that I've seen, maybe not here, are if there's a large enough development like this, then they may give land in lieu of impact fee and do something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know that those aren't going to equate
Wow.
on this size of development.
That's right.
Maybe on different developments, sometimes that can be done. That it says, oh, well, the park impact fee is X and the lot's worth Y, and, you know, like we do with water, we have water dedication versus a fee in lieu. You know, we can go one way or the other on some of those kind of things, but not
If this were-
this size.
if this were 250 lots, yeah, there'd be a park in it probably, but at this size, no, it's generally not a consideration when we're dealing with a zone like this.
Well, I think we just like it if you could consider it whenever feasible. It's always an issue that comes up.
Sure.
Get creative.
Yeah,
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
It's not it. She'll be back.
if we wrap it up, we can.
Yeah.
I
Did you
actually
have
have a
Yeah,
question, if you don't mind, it's sort of off track, but I'm curious as what type of power is being put in nowadays, because I was watching a congressional hearing and one of the congressmen that was questioning Secretary of Commerce or something, it was a cabinet level official, quoted that with the, electric cars, that one electric car is equivalent to about 40 refrigerators.
Really?
Yeah, and as a result, he was indicating that a two-car family, that would be 80 refrigerators, and was asking the secretary what plans are being put to up the capacity for, because if every household in the nation switched over to electric, which I'm not ready to go that right, but my son has
Right.
already.
But keep in mind, it is equivalent to one dryer.
What?
The electric car is equal to one dryer. It's a 220 outlet, so it's equivalent to a dryer, but it might be equivalent to multiple fridges, but it is equivalent to one dryer.
One dryer running for how long?
As long as you need to charge, they're the same amp, it's a 40 amp circuit on a 220 plug.
Well, my question is what kind of capacity Utah Power and Light, if you're aware, if you don't know, I mean, I'm just curious.
No, I mean, what I can say, I mean, it's a great question that, I would assume that the Rocky Mountain Powers of the world are addressing. But I'm fairly confident in saying that, the power that we're installing in this development, for example, is the same as we would have installed, 5 years ago. We provide Rocky Mountain Power with kind of a standard load sheet And then we give them a layout, so there's this many lots. And, you know, they say, okay, here's the backbone, we want you to drag through it.
I believe
If that's ramped up for electric homes, I don't know if, or electric cars, I don't know.
Rocky Mountain Power will sign the plat, and so that they've been notified.
I'm not worried about this.
Yeah, you're just
No, I-
curious.
I just thought since he's here,
Yeah.
I'd pick his brain.
Yeah.
No, I just,
Rather than,
yeah.
he'll
I
never
just
go
had
to
an
lunch
article.
with me, so I can't pick it up.
I would happily go to lunch with you, although somebody would throw a rock at us for later on, but
Yeah, well, there was.
no, I mean, we don't. I haven't actually had any conversations with, if any power company about, hey, do we want to put more power in here to accommodate electric cars like that? No, that has not come up.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
But it would make sense that at their level, at the utility level, that they're thinking through that, I would expect.
Yeah.
We are, you know, we do have an option, to provide charging stations in our garages. That is something that, and I would, now that I say that, like, I would guess that would change the service to the house if that option is selected.
Or not, could go either way.
Maybe, yeah.
We're talking about 200 amp service now. You wanna go to 400 amp service?
I don't think they have, I don't think is it a 200 amp service, Josh? You live in the house? Okay. Yeah.
To upgrade that, big deal.
Yeah. I don't know. We just stop. We're just end with that. We provide power. People are generally happy. with it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry to get you off track.
No, it's a good question. It's a really good question.
Okay. Josh, did you have anything that you wanted to add
I have
to this?
no, I'm good.
Okay.
Just here to take notes.
Perfect. Anybody have any other questions that they'd like to put to Dallas and Josh? On this? If we don't, thank you very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks for the
And
questions.
no, you bet.
Thanks for the nice clean design.
I'd happily come back and have this meeting again. Thank you.
Wow.
Let's not get, it's Christmas, but I don't know. what we're gonna do. All right, what we'll do is close the, well, we'll go to the discussion now, private among the discussion among the planning commission members in regards to taking action on this item. So, Shelley, thoughts?
I think
Any issues,
it's,
concerns?
I think it's great. I would definitely move forward with it.
Thank you. Bob Hinkie?
No, I don't. I'm good.
Next.
It doesn't really do much for the, moderate income people. I don't know what does, I don't know if you have any developments that never do that. But that's been on my mind lately.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's nice and clean. Clean as you can get it, I think it's great.
Okay, thank you. I know that it fits very well in the existing neighborhood that is there. And I think that's the main thing. It's right on the edge, but it's right on the edge of neighborhood, single family homes and housing and larger lot size and things like that. So I think this complements what's there, which is what we're looking for. Bob Washburn, how about you?
It looks good to me. I don't see any issues with it at all.
Awesome. Joe?
No concern.
Okay, sir. Well, if everybody's okay and feels that way, nobody has any other questions or issues, I would entertain a motion in regards to the moving forward on this item.
I'd like to make a motion that we,
Approve the preliminary plan.
we approve the preliminary plat,
So,
subject to the conditions,
findings of facts
findings of facts,
and
just make me chairman and you can do
and
these.
conditions.
Conditions, as outlined in the application.
For the preliminary plan.
Conclusion.
In conclusion,
I got conclusion, conclusions
for the preliminary plan.
for the preliminary plat called Copper Springs. in city
Copper
of
Heights.
Copper Heights.
Okay. Thank you. We have a
Now you
motion
clean that up in the
to
minutes.
approve the preliminary plat for Copper Heights.
We need this. We have
And
to-
we need a second for it.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then. Motion carries to approve the preliminary plat. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Come back anytime.
Can I ask you, when do you think you will start on infrastructure moving dirt?
Probably March.
Okay.
Assuming that
Yeah.
everything goes as smoothly as it did tonight.
Yep.
Probably
Okay.
March.
Thank you.
Box Elder County?
Yes,
Okay.
born and raised. And
Two generations back there. I was born with it.
So we were probably related then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're related.
Great uncle.
No.
It was a great uncle.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we will move back to item number 2, the subdivision amendments. The Providence City Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may make a recommendation to the city council regarding proposed revisions to the city's subdivision code. We had a young lady enter just right after we had closed the public hearing. In the public hearing gives an opportunity to ask questions, talk, and for a 2 to 3 minute time period, okay? And so I wanted to invite you to come up, state your name, and you had a couple of questions. And I think if you put those out, and then we will move on with our discussions, and maybe that will answer some of them.
Hi, Mary Hubbard, Providence.
Thank you.
I was just reading through it, or trying to read through it, and got very confused, so I was hoping that y'all could summarize what the actual important changes are, rather than just what, changing the order of something is in the new subdivision rules. And I was reading that it's because the state has changed and is forcing our hand
You're doing real
to
good.
zone for them, not necessarily for us.
That's part of it.
Which I would like to say ticks me off, but it's neither here nor there. So anyhow, I read through it several times and I got confused. So I'm just wondering what exactly is changing that's important, not the order of doing things.
Right.
They're neutering us in one respect.
Well, thank you for saying that. I didn't know how
That's
far
the
I
answer.
could go
You're probably answering your question.
saying bad things about our state legislature.
Well, we appreciate it, and I think as the discussion goes, we'll get some of that clarification. I know that so anyway, as best we can.
Yeah, that's because
Is there anything specific, 1 or 2 items specific that you're just all of it in
it
general?
was just confusing in some aspects, and others that, things, you changed the numbering of something, no big deal. I guess I don't understand why you're changing the numbering if it's not a big deal, which you say in the sidebar. This doesn't really matter, but we're doing it anyhow, so. One thing I've learned with the city, if you change it, it matters. I learned that the hard way.
I think one of the things you can draw from the state being involved with the required changes is that the city officials, the elected officials, were not elected, do have control over, but not complete control. And this is this is not anything new. It's been going on a long time. And I don't know if it's getting better or worse or anything, but your deduction is. I'll share that same deduction with you. I think that's kind of mean. And
Well, I think they're just meddling in stuff that is none of their truthfully legislative, for a body that continually says they don't like government meddling. They sure like to meddle a whole heck of a lot.
And so you need to go to the legislature and see if they'll give you some public time there. Hey,
And hello, Rizzo. Okay,
Hey, write an
Thank you, Mary.
email, right? You can always write.
I
a
do write
sentence.
emails
Yeah.
and I don't even get replies, so I
Well, thank
have
you.
very little respect for them as they have none for me.
Thank you for coming here and participating, and hopefully we can, and if we don't answer all your questions,
I know
Scarlett.
Scarlett has all the answers. I've been before these bodies before, so I know how the game is played, so
thank you. for
it's
coming in.
helpful.
Thank you, Mary.
Good
All
to see
right.
you, Mary.
Scarlett, we will turn our discussion over to you. Would you like to sit at the table so you don't have to stand or?
no, I don't mind, I just I will introduce it and then I guess so to hit the high points. Couple of things the state code changed. Cities had before could pretty much establish their own subdivision process. I mean, there were rules, but we could decide what steps to take to follow those rules. The states intervened a little bit and a lot actually, and they have decided that they don't like the idea of concept plans. So we cannot require a developer to bring in a concept plan now. However, if a developer asks us to review a concept plan, we have to allow them to submit one, but we can't require it, and we do have to review it for them. The other thing that's changed is the actual review cycle. Before, we couldn't go back and forth and negotiate with the developer and work timeframes out. I honestly don't think that Providence City is one of the bad actors. That's what the League of Cities and Towns and the legislative representatives use that term for the communities that aren't following the rules quite the way they think. One of the reasons I don't think we're the bad actors is because our changes that we're making, you don't see the concept plan. So that's not a step that we do a concept plan with the developers, but we don't bring it to you. So that doesn't delay the developers that way. The city council, we took city council out of the mix many years ago and just had you be the approval authority for subdivisions because they basically are very administrative. If they follow the rules, whether we like the design really much or not, if they've met the rules, we have to allow them to move forward with it. But many communities had not done that. And so the state stepped in and said, preliminary plats, you can have the planning commission weigh in on those if you want. The code does have the option to make it completely, administrative and at a staff level if we chose to do that. We're recommending in our proposal that the planning commission be involved at the preliminary plat level. The other change that the state is doing is at the preliminary plat level, the state's actually telling us we have to require preliminary construction drawings. We've required quite a bit of information at the preliminary plat level, but we've not asked them to move forward with construction drawings until we go through that preliminary plat and make sure that it really is something that's gonna work. But
Can I
now,
ask a question? Just like tonight, we didn't see any building plans, preliminary or otherwise, regardless of what they're gonna put on there. But that's something now that they would have to.
They would have to-
Usually that would come later for
Right.
us.
now they will have to, not the structural, not the actual houses,
Right.
but they will have to have preliminary construction plans done that show they probably could have answered your water question better at that point. But they will have to have preliminary construction plans done as to how they will be doing the construction work, which kind of surprised me because the big lobby group for this, there's two groups. One of them's there might be more, but the two that we hear about all the time, the Home Builders Association and the Property Rights Coalition. Those folks, they have really demonized the cities and make us sound like we're all bad actors and that our job is to slow development down, and that's why it's costing so much for people to develop and whatnot. And they really do have the ear of the legislature. So, so now when you see a preliminary plat, there will be more meat to it. Whether we actually bring all the construction drawings to you, or not, we'll work with Michael as the chair and decide just exactly how we want to do that policy wise, but they will be in-house. We definitely will start reviewing construction drawings at a much earlier phase. there's a part of me that it likes that idea. There's been a lot of times that we've looked at a preliminary plat and we've struggled with whether to recommend approving it to you because of some construction plan issues that we can see coming up. So I can see good side to this. From the development community though, that's making them spend money much earlier in the process than they normally would, which is why it kind of surprised me that they put that in there. The other thing that they have done, and like I said, we did not have the city council involved in the actual decision as far as plat approval, but they have said to communities, you cannot have the city council involved in plat approval. So we can choose to have the preliminary plat come to the planning commission. We don't get that option for the final plat. The final plat is an administrative function and the staff will be the ones that have to sit down and go through it with a fine tooth comb. Not that we don't already, but we will do that and then it won't come back to you. So your shot to get all kinds of input is at the preliminary plat level. That's why it becomes really important to understand our zoning code and the state code as well, as far as regulating land use code, because that's where the decisions are made. If it's in the zoning code and it allows them to do something and they put it on their preliminary plat, then, or their final plat, then we will have to prove that. And so if we're really feeling like there's problems in the subdivision, we don't get any way in on how the process works now. We have to do the process the state has outlined. So our big effort is in the zoning code, in the land use regulations. So just keep that in mind as you're talking about getting more creative with the development design and things. It's not at the subdivision level where we would do that. It is at the zoning, the land use regulation level. The other thing that they have done is they've restricted our review time. On the preliminary plat, we get one shot, pretty much. Now, again, we aren't a bad actor, as far as I know, because we've been doing it just like the code prescribes. We get their plan, we turn around and get it reviewed within the 30-day time frame. That's shortened up now. We don't have 30 days anymore. We did have 30 days, but now we don't have that much. We have 20, I think it is. And we get that initial review done, and then we give them the red line comments. And then they have to respond, and then we respond, and then they respond. Now, what we can't do is if we gave them 7 comments and they come back, unless it's a really egregious error that we missed, we can't say, oh, wait a minute, we got 2 more comments for you. Because if they answer all 7 and they answer them right, then we pretty much have to bring it to you. We have to accept that as the review and then bring it to you and let you look at it. And if you want to put the other 2 comments in that we couldn't, you can probably do that and say, fix this with your final plat. The final plat gives us a little bit more. We get 3 reviews with the final plat. So we could go to the well 3 times and say, oh, we missed 1 or 2 comments here. We need to add these. And so we can do that with them, but we still are held to a very strict time frame. We cannot drag these out. Not that we ever did. Most of the dragging out was waiting on the developer to get back to us with their revisions, not them waiting for us to finish our reviews. That's why I say I don't think we were ever a bad actor, and I think that's why this kind of it made us, it's hard to take emotionally because it makes it sound like we haven't been doing a good job all along. But the fact that we really don't have to change a whole lot within our ordinance. So to Mary's point, what I tried to do as I went through this in our old ordinance, as we thought of something and thought, oh, we probably need to add that. We need to start looking for that. We would just add it to the end of the list instead of going through the hassle of renumbering and everything.
Yeah.
So with this, I decided to try and categorize the items that we were asking for. So there's a category, there's kind of a box for what you need as far as the plat design. And then there's a box for what you need as far as water and different things. That's kind of my intent, was to group the different requirements in similar groups, so that as a developer was looking at it, they could just go down the list and say, here's how I draw my plat, here's what they need for roads, here's what they need for water. That's kind of the way I tried to reorganize the steps. I don't think I added any requirements per se much, but I did reorganize them to try and make them more user-friendly as somebody that was sitting down to design development after years of listening to developers give me input on some of that stuff.
Part of this comes from what I understand, what I've heard recently is on some of the large subdivisions where it's 200-300 or more units and so forth. And that developers were going in and they were getting a list of things they needed to address. They do that, submit, and then they get more of them. You know, they would come up with more things. I think that's where I really think it's coming from. I know there was lawsuits in the Salt Lake City area and different Salt Lake County, things like that. I don't think it's the smaller cities. I don't think we have a problem. I don't think we've ever heard a complaint about anything like that. For here, the delays and things like that. But it was a big thing down there.
I think there were also some. It's a tricky wicket when you're dealing with an administrative act to have public hearings. Because a public hearing gives people the idea that they get to come and speak their piece, and you'll listen to them, which you do.
Might make a difference.
And it might make a difference. And so, but the problem is, if they have followed A, B, C, and D, and they've done A, B, C, and D, even though we may not like the fact that they put a cul-de-sac here, we would have rather the cul-de-sac over there. And we can suggest that, but if they're not interested in moving it, then we have to accept that. And so then the public got frustrated and said, well, you don't listen to us. And it wasn't that people weren't listening, it's just that the plan met the existing code. And so we listened, and we would change code sometimes based on some of those comments, but they couldn't impact that subdivision. And so.
And the code had to be objective.
Yes.
It couldn't be subjective. So
right.
We were, saying this is what we want.
Yes. Yeah, the code had to, so I think, so then one of the things they took out of it was public hearing. And there still is an option if you feel like you need one. We're not saying we can't, but we're not utilizing that.
Have public hearings.
You do on land use ordinances, but not anything subdivision related. And we have not done that for a long time. For that very fact is that people would get really mad, and they'd come back in and they'd get mad at the planning commission or the city council, whoever was holding it at the time. And then they'd come back in and yell at me that nobody listened to them. And I would have to look at them and say, okay, see this right here in the code? Read that.
Yeah.
See this? What's different? And they would say nothing. And I'd say, that's why they had to pass it. There's nothing different. We can't make them change. And so I think that's probably a good step that and I know there were other communities that were allowing more public involvement in the actual subdivision review process than what we have for quite some time. So like I said, there were some, I can understand some of it. I do feel like they reached too far. I still feel like a city should be able to figure out how to do the review process and things like that, but they didn't. So that's how this is written. Now, I did make some changes that we have talked about as at a staff level for not very many, but a few changes that we've made talked about as a staff level for things that are in here. I tried to tell you why that particular thing was there, why we added it. So one of the things that we had in our old in our old ordinance, we did have the way we handled development agreement, or in our current ordinance, the way we handled development agreements is not, we're doing a little bit different. We're still following our code when we need to, but state code changed the way you can handle development agreements too. And so we are changing this to reflect more, to be better, more consistent with state code and more consistent with what works better for the city.
So does that require a public hearing on land use?
On a development agreement now, if you're going to do a development agreement, to me, a development agreement is turned into a land use ordinance, is what a land is. I mean, that's kind of the simplified way to say it. Because if you're going to do anything in that development agreement, if a development agreement is completely administrative, it does not need to go to city council. In fact, it probably shouldn't. And that's why we changed the way we were doing things and had them do an application for development installation rather than an agreement where we document where they're bonding and things like that and how they're gonna dedicate the water and stuff, so we know what they're doing. But it's all administrative. It's stuff that they can't get out of, even if they wanted to. It's just saying, this is how we're going. If they have options, like on the water, it says they've chosen to dedicate water rights, or they've chosen to dedicate water shares, or they will be paying a fee in lieu. Our development application allows us to clarify those options, but it's still very administrative. The way the state code reads now, if you want to have a development come in and there's something just a little quirky about that, that's kind of, maybe you want to give them a density bonus because they're going to give you the park or something like that. That would have to go to a public hearing and be treated just like a land use ordinance in order to make that change, where before you could do some of that kind of negotiating as long as you didn't violate the premise of your code. But now you actually have to take it to a public hearing if you're making any little changes like that. So that's the difference. My preference from here, how you guys want to handle it is fine, but I would just kind of prefer to listen to your discussion, and so I probably will move my pop over there and just sit. And if you have any questions, one thing it did have a ripple effect. So as you can see, we've just having to change the way we process plats ended up, we needed to change the way our land use authority read. We needed to change the way our sensitive areas read, the subdivision regulations, the administration and enforcement. It bubbled into the design standards and the public improvements and the condominium approval. So it had a ripple effect on all of those. But all of those changes kind of relate back to like taking planning commission out of some of the steps, or things like that we had to do. So I will, unless you have specific questions for me, I would like to just listen to your question or your comments.
As we go.
Has this gone to the city attorney before it came to us, or what?
It did. I did send it to them a while ago and they looked through it before I got it to you. And they said that they didn't really weigh in on, is it great code or not great code or that kind of thing, but they did say it meets all the requirements, you're following the law. They did say that. So, and they do let me know if I botch something up, but they seem to be, they felt like it was reasonable. So.
Is that the same authority, I guess, that did the codification? Like when we have
No.
new big codes like this, do we take those back to some sort of a review?
No, the codification is a completely different animal. During the codification, we make minor changes, but we don't make substantial changes. The codification looks and lets us know if we're out of whack with state code, like on some of our definitions. We changed our definitions because state code, we called it an accessory apartment unit. state code calls it an internal accessory dwelling unit. I mean, so we changed some things like that to be more harmonious with state code. They also let us know in a couple of places that our state code reference was out of date. We needed to update. That's what they were looking for. When you say, Ryan, is it?
Yeah, it's taking and making sure it's compliant, on a technical side, not on a substantive side.
So these, once you get done and you make your recommendation to city council and then city council weighs in and they make their final decision, then Ty takes that and Ty, you actually enter it right into our code now, don't you?
Okay, yeah. So once I'll attach the ordinance as documentation proof, I'll go in and delete what needs to be deleted and add what needs to be added.
But when he does that in the code, you won't see red lines and red and crossouts or anything. You will just see the final copy in the code, but he will attach the actual ordinance, so there is reference to it. So.
I'm also wondering, so it'll skip us or this body and it doesn't go through city council. The final plat, it'll go to the land use authority, right?
Administrative.
Yes, which is yourself, city engineer and public works,
Mhm.
right? Is there a way, and I don't, maybe it's law, I'm still learning, to maybe have a member of the planning commission or a member of the city council, kind of
Not the city council.
a representative?
We can't involve the city council at all. But I'll have to look. We may be able to add a member of the planning commission, but definitely not the city council. They really made that loud and clear.
But it will go through on preliminary, it's final that it doesn't, so
Yes.
you're already involved.
Yes,
It's just administratively left that goes back to that body. And rather than it go to a single member of the administration, it's selected that it's 3 members, professional members and our conditional use already goes there. Some of the things already go through that body.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
Yeah.
there's one case that I'm just kind of thinking of where, we approved their phases. And then we wanted them to come back before they started working on the other phase, maybe hold them a little accountable for some things that they were supposed to do. So I guess I'm just kind of worried that we not, that won't
That's-
happen anymore.
that's being told, you're being slapped on the wrist and saying you can't do
You
that.
can't do that.
So that's a no. At this point, I think that's the state saying, no, that's part of the reason why. No,
Why
you can't do
we're-
that. You can't come back and evaluate, hold them back if they fit the.
Per phase, like if they didn't do something they were supposed to do in phase 1, can we tell them they need to wait for phase 2?
Well, it's all, because a lot of it's
Or
time based.
would the administrative land use authority be able to do that? No?
no, probably not. It depends on what it is they haven't done yet. If they're saying, right, but we're not asking for final, so we have what we call substantial completion inspection of a subdivision. They don't have to wait until they have substantial completion of their first phase to start with their second. So we really can't hold them to the fire on some of their unfinished items if they're still within the 2-year time frame that our code allows them to finish. So it would depend. If they came and we had listed, and it was one of the requirements that was there that says you will install X, and they came to us and they wanted their substantial completion inspection, we would give them a punch list and say, you haven't done X. So you have to do X before we will give you final acceptance of the subdivision. And so we do hold them to it, but the timing would be different. It would be based on their construction timing more than their plat application timing.
And is that something that's in in like the codes that we help cover. Sorry, I'm going, I mean, like,
If you add in
the
the plat,
construction piece is that's outside of our
if you
scope.
had conditions, when you adopt the conditions as set forth in the staff report.
Mhm.
You can add other conditions. Those conditions have to be met.
Okay,
Those conditions would be met before, final plat. Construction of a amenity, if that's the requirement in construction of amenity, before we would accept the development as built. Now, that's a different step. One's in planning and one's in construction.
Mhm.
Both of them talk about final. One's a final, the designing of the plat, the land, divided out by who parcels. And once the construction of the roads and the infrastructure and all of that, different finals, different timing, the final of timing and accepting of the road can be held for making sure that all of the amenities and that were supposed to be there before we accept ownership of final road. But final plat, you've got to accept the final plat and move on, because we have timeframes and we don't have the ability to hold back, because we're set to a time frame to accept that final plat, and we only have certain amount of time periods in order to review and accept. But it's a much more rigid process. The
And
plan
those
side.
timeframes are from the state,
Mhm.
okay. Thank you.
Is the administrative land use meeting a public meeting?
Yes,
So if we wanted to attend a public meeting, we could do that.
Certainly.
You can't participate, but you can attend.
yeah, it's on Zoom, but I mean, we're a public body, just like you are. So,
Anybody other questions for Scarlett?
I just have one comment.
Sure.
No, it's on page 32, line 87. We're dealing with granting extensions.
oh, that is something that is new for us, because we hadn't had that come up much, but in the last 4 years, we've had quite a few developers either run into trouble or things didn't go the way they anticipated. And
That you couldn't get workers during COVID.
yes,
My comment is just, I don't like the word et cetera.
okay.
I think it leaves it for someone to have to interpret what et cetera. Normally, the definition would be, well, it has to be in line with those other events that are listed. It has to be similar, but I would think it'd be better just to say at the end of that, in lieu of et cetera, something like, or a similar event
Okay,
out of the control of the developer.
okay,
But it's just, there's no magic words.
okay.
Any other comments for
No,
questions or anything?
I read the whole thing. And
Yep.
Everything else was, that's the only thing that jumped out at me. I was interested in that, but you've already covered it on the developer agreement. 'Cause when I was a deputy county attorney for Rich County, Bruce Baird, the infamous Bruce Baird,
Yep,
wanted a huge 800 lot subdivision, and they didn't wanna do it without a development agreement. And quite frankly, the Rich County Commission is fairly unsophisticated for that size of a development. It never got off the ground, but I don't think they were gonna treat it as anything other than a contract between the county and the developer at the time. So I think the change for having it go through at least some public comments so the public sees it, it's not a bad idea.
I actually agree with that change too. I think that's where some of the bad actors came into play. Some of the bigger sophisticated developers
Not Bruce
that
Baird.
could understand. I didn't say names. Some of that could understand. They kind of used those development agreements as loopholes to circumvent zoning changes, literally, and land use changes. And so I agree with that too, because I think that's what caused a lot of this bad actor stuff. From the public's point of view, is because they felt like that's not what the code read. And here's this big development here. So I think that development thing was a good idea.
Conversely, the developer has to know what he's dealing with
Yes,
for that long and that big of a project, and doesn't want the county officials to come in, and county or city officials to move the goal line.
right. So,
So, yeah.
Brian, on some of these things, isn't it? They take effect at the first of the year? Or is there,
We can establish, usually you either establish a time frame of when it takes effect or it takes effect upon adoption.
we have to have it passed by February 1st. But, and so our effective date, we couldn't really have it be any later than February
no later
1st.
than that, but it could be sooner if we've got everything.
Yes,
squared
if there are some of the communities that they must have got right on them, because they've already changed. Some of the communities have already changed their ordinances. So, when it starts, just has to start by February 1st.
What about the status of projects or plans that we've already, like the project tonight? Would that continue on the old way? Anything that's been implemented or started, would those plans come to us for final review, or as of that effective date, it goes to the administrative?
I would say as far as a final plat, because we treat them as different applications and not an extension of a current application, it's based on when that application is filed.
Okay.
And if it's filed under the new rule, then it would follow the new rules. But it's a different application process. I think that's what I would look at, is it's a different application, and we treat it as a separate application. And so we would go based on that time frame.
Okay.
So, one other one on this one, and Joe, to your point, we may include a force majeure, awarding, because adding weather, natural disaster, natural hazards, or force majeure, which would be how they call acts of God.
You lose all these legal terms, how are we to understand you?
That was a comment from the audience.
Anyway, may use those words because they're common in construction language. So,
Mary, if you will come to the microphone and keep your comment brief.
If there, just wanted to tell
Okay.
Scarlett, thank you, I get the changes now. And when did the elected body get kicked off of having anything to do with zoning? When the city council was no longer involved?
No, the city council's still involved in zoning, but we did it back in 2007.
Okay, I couldn't remember, so yeah,
Okay,
All right.
that's when we took them out of the subdivision process.
okay, thank you, I get the changes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Suggestions on how we go through this, or is it that everybody's gone through it?
Well, I've just got a suggestion. First, an explanation. I went through this with the idea that this is an opportunity if there's some code that we have suggestions that's not being addressed here already, that we should be looking at those, because this is an opportunity to clean up anything that is a problem. So I kind of looked at it that way. I've got some comments. I think I would like to see us just kind of go through and turn the pages, and if anybody's got a comment on a page, then we can kind of discuss it. Otherwise, it's good. So to me, that would make it so that we kind of go in some order and we touch on everything that's out there.
With that in mind, we've got black text and we've got red text. Black text is the existing code. Red is the code that has to be changed, or is it also suggestions
It's
by the
both.
staff? Okay.
That's why you've got the,
No.
No.
To the
comment.
side.
Okay, so the comments are from
Comment
staff.
references.
no, the comments tell you whether it's coming from state code or whether it's like on the one that Joe was talking about, the extension of time for completion, that comment says this is something new during the past few years. So I explained why we're doing that one there. So
Okay, thanks.
Your thoughts on how we move forward through it, go through it, Brian? I'll start from the beginning and just page through.
That sounds great.
Shelley, you in
Yeah, I'm
agreement?
okay with that.
Bob? Okay,
I can't see any way to do it really. I mean.
yep. Joe, any other idea, or you think that's our best route?
I don't know that it would be best to just have, I'm done with mine.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be listening from here on in.
okay, all right. Let's approach it that way. And if we have nothing, then we should be able to move through it quickly. So let me get back to the start.
I just printed mine,
Yeah,
just straight through, but my pages are different. I don't see the pages that you would on your computer that's
okay,
consolidation of pages.
but you can look.
They're printed on the dock.
Right, but I've got page 1 of 1
Well,
several times.
I'll read you the line 1 number and we can go from there. It's PCC chapter 2 and 4 land use authority.
Got it.
That we've talked about that. Any comment, anybody from your reviews? Okay. Go to the next page, Providence City Code 1052. Non-developable, developable sensitive areas.
No comment.
There's a few just little addition corrections there, changes. Anybody? Okay, nothing? Okay. We look good. Continuing on down. We're at 1124 fee schedule. There's just a couple of little things there.
11.2.4, we missed 11.1.
we didn't make any
There were no
changes,
changes to it.
No changes, okay.
but
so
I just included the whole,
Right, so I
subdivision
printed the whole
text.
thing, so, okay, 11.2, go ahead.
1124, just those changes, okay? I'll just go down to the ones that have it. Okay, it looks like that's the 1124 fee schedule continuing. We're taking out, and the comment is this application fee is charged at the time the application is filed. Fees for engineering review, things like that, as they are incurred. Anybody, any issues with that? Okay. Now we are in, let's see, it continues down, we're down to like line 132 of that. See chapter 1060 of this code, floor plan management regulations. Nobody any issues with that?
No.
Okay, chapter 11.3 plat procedures and requirements. And we move down to 11.3.1. Purpose and pre-application meeting. We're eliminating and changing. Anybody, any issues with those changes?
No, those are state code.
Okay. It continues down. Comments, so same thing. The city can no longer require concept plans. Okay, we talked about that. 11.3.2, same thing, state code. Those content, the content and so forth, where we get down to that, the line 100 item B, is that from the state code as well? That specifies those items?
Yep.
On
Yeah.
owner authorization, okay, all state there. Okay. And we're eliminating that, moving forward. Forward, same thing, state code. Bringing about those changes. Same thing, continuing down. If you're following on the computer, I'm on page 14 of 43. Still state code changes. All of that continuing. Same thing.
You gotta tell us which code
Yeah,
you're in.
if you can just
Okay,
give me line
Pages don't
numbers.
seem to work.
I'm at designation of administrative land use authority for the approval of a preliminary plat.
11 what?
You have a line
I'm
number?
still yeah, I can give you the line number. I've gone through and I'm down at 391. It appears that all of those changes and additions are based on the state code.
Yeah.
Okay. Same thing at 1133 final plat. State code, making those changes. Same thing at line 499. Continue with that, same thing, 514. Continuation of changes because of the state code. Same thing. Continuing, I'm at line 616 now. Well,
That's good. I mean, there's
okay, everything okay?
no comments. So,
Okay, if we get to something where you do, please just stop me, okay?
Yep.
So we can address that. All right. I'm moving on, same thing, I'm at line 750, lot line adjustment, state code changes. Same thing at line 91, state code.
Okay,
91, we're in chapter 11-4, so we changed.
we're in 11-4 now. Okay,
Yeah, 1143 streets and street improvements.
okay, hang on. So, so that would be page 2 of 7.
1143.
We're at line 91, if that helps you.
I think Bob's got some other.
Right, so I've got some things on
Okay,
this section here, so. If we look at line 71, under 1143, streets and street improvements,
okay,
says, connection, new streets must connect with existing public streets. I don't know if there's a way to say directly, but if we don't have any dog legs and when we make a connection, that would be preferable. And I don't know if that's something that we need to address, but in my mind, if we can avoid that, that's a good thing. Any comment?
new streets must connect.
So I just put connect directly with existing public streets, but anyway.
Well, it doesn't specify, unless it gets that down in there. Does it specify the type of connection?
No, it's B, it's 1143
Yeah,
B.
B,
It just says that we need to connect, and you can connect with a dog leg, or you can connect directly, or make a roundabout connection, or something that makes it so you're not,
right?
so you get roads aligned in a straight line as much as you can, don't have a wacky, dangerous intersection.
Scarlett, thoughts?
And I don't know,
I was just about to look up our standards and specs. In our standards and specs book, we do address, we address 90 degrees and things like that. The slope, the grade, they have to come in at a 4%, less than 4% or less, to connect. So some of that, I think, is taken care of in our specifications manual, not straight in city code, but do you remember specifically, Ryan?
I think that's the way it's constructed. I think if you're talking about T's versus crosses.
no, I'm talking about second north and third east.
Second,
Second north, third east, where you've got Third East comes and then you've got to jog around to keep going on Third East. The second north.
And your suggestion is to have it say, new streets must directly connect
Connect directly.
directly?
And it is, but I don't know if that even means
Yeah.
to not have a dog there.
Yeah,
It's something that came to mind as I was reading it. There's something we can do to fix that. If not, it's not a huge deal.
Maybe the elimination of offset intersections, offset intersection will be discouraged, or I don't know how to.
I actually
the wordsmith
do
that,
think
but it's
that's
all-
in our spec book, and the where you're talking about happened.
Decades ago. Yeah.
So we do discourage points of conflict and
Okay.
we try and. That's part of what's in that specification manual.
do you
Okay.
wanna look at, not now, but look at that, and if there's
That
something.
could also, I think some of that's covered in our transportation master plan, identifying the lining up of roads.
Lining up of roads, okay, and that's fine, that's fine.
Okay,
So going down to the next red point on, row 91.
Okay.
We're giving an exemption in our code for certain streets. I don't understand why we would do that, why that's important.
You
it's
wanna
coming
strike
from the,
number 6?
Number 6, yeah.
The council that put that in there, they got a lot of feedback, a lot of pushback when they were trying to improve Canyon Road. And also when they were trying to improve 400 East south of Canyon Road. The topography on the west side of 400 East from Canyon Road to, the Millville city limit to Hillsborough, basically, has a lot of hills and hollows on the west side. And they felt like putting curb, gutter and sidewalk along that west side was not something they wanted to entertain.
right,
And so they put that in the code at that time. Now, if you've got a different idea now, we can certainly strike it, but that's why they put that there. The trying to retrofit Canyon Road seemed to be very difficult, so that's why they put the Canyon Road exemption in there.
For sidewalks, right?
Mhm.
So,
The Grandview Drive and Foothill Drive in the Grandview subdivision, those roads are in the Grandview Hills subdivision. Those roads extend into Providence Highlands subdivision. In Providence Highlands, they had to do curb, gutter, sidewalk. In the Grandview Hills subdivision, those people were very adamant that they lived in that subdivision because it had the type of agricultural field that it had without curb, gutter and sidewalks. And so that's why those are there. A lot of that was because of public opinion.
okay,
Yep, and it's being added in this it's being moved, and that's why it's red.
Mhm.
It's previously worded, but it's being moved, and that's why it's in red. But to eliminate it, if you feel like at this point where we should have any new construction, have curb, gutter and sidewalk, you'd remove that in order to do that, if that was your intent.
that's kind of my concern. I'm also concerned with the Highland development. That they're pushing a lot of traffic down through that on these streets. Which, if anybody wants to walk someplace, they're walking on somebody's yard or they're walking in the street. And that seemed very dangerous to me, and I really don't like the idea of granting an exemption to certain streets in the code.
We don't have a right of way in there. So if you
We
wanted
don't?
to,
Why not?
we don't have a 66-foot right of way through the Grandview and Foothill area. So if you wanted to expand the street, we'd probably have to do some property acquisition I don't think, do we, Ryan? I don't think,
There's
those-
lots of places we don't.
yeah,
I think at this point, I mean, this seems like this was a code intro. A lot of that development is already done. If you wanna remove this one because the development has fulfilled its purpose and it has its feel, most of this is
mhm.
developed. At this point, there's a few pieces that this would affect by moving it out. There may be some, but most of this stuff has been developed. And as it's been developed, then we didn't require the right of way to include those items because they weren't being asked for. So we're not gonna go back and maybe rebuild, but if there was a new construction or new development, then that's what it's affect. But
Okay,
we
so-
can reverse and now have them go back and put it in, but,
Okay.
so you want it out.
So, yeah, I don't like the idea of having, granting an exception in the code for.
So my question for the chair,
Yes.
is at this point, do you adopt a resolution, or to take a motion to accept as is, and then have him propose a motion to amend to take that out, so that you have a document you're looking to recommend, and having individual motions like this? Or how are you going to determine by a body that you're going to accept or reject that?
Part of it.
Well,
Good question.
great question.
So
I
I
think
might recommend just taking a motion
Yeah.
that you're going to,
take it
that
out.
you're going
We're gonna
to
recommend that it's taken.
recommend the thing, and then have an amendment to that motion, that if he wants to make amendment to the motion, then you get a vote on it, and you vote on that amendment, and it either
And move
passes or
on.
fails, then you move on.
I like it.
Okay,
Can't we just make a motion to accept it as is with the following condition?
Oh, but then
Then
you
you
gotta
have to keep
remember all
track
that
of all the
stuff.
conditions.
You gotta remember
Well, it
it.
says this is the only one so far.
We don't.
So far, but there's gonna be more.
Really? You got a whole list of them?
I do.
Somebody that makes the motion has to.
Never mind.
Let's make. the
Bob got a
motion.
bunch of them. Let's roll with it.
so you're recommending that we deal with it as we move forward.
Yeah,
Instead of
We
waiting
start,
and
we
doing-
start dealing with it now.
Okay.
By accepting or making a recommendation to accept this document. And then I'll raise my hand and say, I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Do we
And-
say that we're accepting the document up to this point?
No.
Because we haven't
No.
gone through the
No,
whole
we have to
thing.
go through the whole
No.
thing and then decide.
yeah.
And then.
And then as-
Or, I mean, the way that he's saying is that we accept the whole document now. And then as we go through it, we say, I'd like to make an amendment to strike item 6.
Okay.
And then we vote on that. We say, no, let's keep it in there, or yeah, let's get rid of it. And then we say, okay, good, let's move on. Then I've got another comment, and then Shelley has one, and then whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
My only question is saying that we accept the document the way it is when we haven't gone through the
It's
entire
a
thing.
motion, so
Not a-
you've got a motion,
A
and then you
motion.
just amend the motion. You still have
Okay.
one vote at the end to adopt
Okay,
that.
Why
motion.
don't we just go through the whole document and then come back and
Make those
motions?
notes.
and that's fine too. We can do that.
okay, let's do that. Will you keep track on a list for us of what we're gonna come back to?
I will, yeah.
Well, first of all, how does everybody else feel on the commission here? How do we feel? Are we in support of this? Is there any comments, different ideas?
I think generally as a city progressing forward, it's a, I think what most of us would like to see is more curb and gutter in the sidewalk. I think
Yeah.
That's a good.
Well, I think like Bob's saying, we don't wanna have an exception where if somebody comes in with a good reason, we can add them to this or something like that.
I agree with your comments, and I'm not doing this to dissuade you from striking that, but I do want you to understand. Most of the downtown area does not require curb and gutter. We used to, and then we had someone petition the council and the planning commission, and they actually changed that. So
Right, but
these
we,
are not the only roads that don't require curb and
Right.
gutter.
but we didn't put it into the code, that those are accepted from having curb and
I
gutter.
think they have a different code section for
They
those,
do.
but, and you may want to take those out at some point as well. I mean,
And so,
but if you wanna take this one out, let's go,
So there's other places where there's similar things like this right here.
Yes, but it's fine to take this out.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to be aware that this is not necessarily an isolated incident of no
Okay.
curb and gutter.
so we're only addressing this document today, so. I don't like this.
But you're gonna hold that for us
So,
to.
Till the end.
yeah,
to-
yeah, so we need to,
At the end. Okay, great.
Okay, we okay? You got it written down, which are numbers and stuff, right?
right,
Okay,
yep,
let's move forward.
okay, and so
Okay, do you
I-
have
I- I
others
have
in this
one-
section?
have one other thing that's an addition to this section, because we're talking about grades of streets here under E.
Yes, E1.
So we talk about, the grades of streets not exceed 15%, 150 feet, all that stuff. And then number 2, shall be designed and constructed at grade less than 4% for a distance of at least 100 feet approaching intersections. Now, I would like to add, I'll just read what I have written down here and then we can discuss it if you like, but I'll just read it and then tell you why. Okay, so, any downhill street or road that terminates into a T intersection at the end of a grade change must either, 1, provide a physical barrier to prevent damage to a private residence, personal property, or public utility junction box, or 2, no residences may be built directly across from the intersection for the width of the road or street. And the reason for that is, right where I live, there's a road that changes elevation, comes down, there's a stop sign, and it comes to a T right there. My next door neighbor is right in the path of that stop sign. And a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, somebody came down on an icy night, right through that stop sign. And if it had gone straight, he would have gone straight through my neighbor's garage. But he avoided the garage and he amazingly, miraculously went in between our houses, all the way to the backyard, and then smashed into the fence on top of an 8-foot retaining wall, with one wheel hanging over the retaining wall. And, you know, I brought this up a couple of times in one way or another, but,
Yeah.
I think that for safety, it's a responsible thing for the city to require that there be some way to prevent property damage and to enhance safety in a situation like that.
Well, we gotta
So-
be realistic too, from the standpoint that, anybody could run any intersection, flat, grade, and, crash into somebody's house.
True.
We have enough young student drivers that manage to take out a few mailboxes and other things, fences and stuff. So if we're talking about the code, that if I'm a new developer and I'm putting in this street, you believe what you're asking me to do is that I come up with some way of, if a person runs through that intersection, I have to put something on the other side of the road to stop them, block them, or slow them down in some way. Is that what you're asking for?
That's one option. Or another option is to not put a house right there. And we have a green
Well,
space right there.
It could be that
Or-
most intersections on new development, if it's already been developed across the road. Other people's thoughts on this? I don't think we can
So-
dictate that way. I
Well,
don't know.
so,
I actually think it's a damn good idea.
so,
Because quite frankly, I have represented a gravel pit
Yeah,
down in Pleasant View. That the only road out of the gravel pit is right next to Weaver High School, and none of their trucks but Independence hauling out of the pit. It's an 11% grade that goes into a 7. And they've had 3 runaway trucks that have hit the house at the end of the road because it's a T intersection. And, you know, if it's got a grade like that, the snow, then maybe that's something that needs to be put in the code to just indicate that no house can be built across from it for safety purposes.
What if it already exists? That's my thought. What if it already exists? If it's
Well,
not,
no,
This is new construction, this is.
It's exempt. I mean, you can't force it,
yeah,
but anyway, that's, I won't belabor it. That's,
yeah.
So there's some ways to resolve it. I mean, you can put a barrier with some boulders or something right there. Or you can
But
create.
I don't have jurisdiction over the property on the other side.
Correct.
Is this,
Correct.
it's a city's, it would be in the right of way, correct? If I put boulders or
Well,
something,
no. So another way to resolve that is it's no longer a T intersection. We make a roundabout there and the roundabout becomes the barrier that keeps a car from going straight through. If you're going slow enough, you can negotiate the roundabout. If you're going too fast, you're gonna,
Unless the topography is such that you cannot continue that road west. If you're headed
Well, no.
west and
you have a
you can have
roundabout.
your houses there, but their backyards are dropping off significantly. And we couldn't continue a developer couldn't continue a road to the west, then you wouldn't, I don't think we could force him to put a road in that couldn't meet city specs.
Well, no, it would be meet city specs. If you have a road coming down to a T and you just put a roundabout in there. And that, the center of the roundabout.
Three-legged roundabout.
Yeah, you can go right or you can go left at the roundabout.
Or you can go
And,
on top of it.
or you can go straight through it if you're out of control. But it protects the property. It's a much safer option. Or you just don't put a house there. It's just the cost of building in a steep location.
Mhm.
So the fourth leg of the roundabout may not,
Never be finished.
your fourth leg may never be able to be done because that topography, that slope between there and where that heads, that's too steep and can't go that direction.
Correct.
So, and a roundabout, you know, versus maybe boulders or
Right.
some other option, roundabouts, $1 to $1.5 million for that.
Not all of them. There was someplace the other day, cute little roundabouts. You just about didn't have to turn, but they had a roundabout.
You gotta have,
Then it didn't accomplish what he just.
Right.
asked.
Yeah, there was a bump there. I mean,
You also have to remember snow removal to negotiate in those roundabouts. If you're scrunching one in and not allowing adequate,
well, this
area.
would happen in the preliminary plat phase, right?
Let me ask you, if the developer says, well, I'll put barriers up, we get a lot of complaints about ugly stuff. And the people wanna take them down and they don't want the utility box there and all kinds of stuff. So, I guess my question, first of all, I'm fine for you to recommend something like that, but that's gotta go to engineering. So we may have to pull that part out, cause we can't delay approving
Yeah.
this thing too far. But I think maybe if it went to engineering, maybe they could come up with a constructive idea. We also have to be careful on the other side where you say they can't put a house there, but be careful that we're not entering into a taking zone. While the philosophy is really good, we get into some of the property rights stuff, so we would just need to make sure that it's something that we word very carefully to keep us to achieve what you need, so that we don't have people going through houses and things like that, but not put us at risk for saying we're requiring over the limit.
Well, and if it's $1 million to $1.5 million for a roundabout, developers aren't gonna do it. They'll put the barrier up or boulders or something like that. They'll go the least expensive thing.
Let's go with boulders.
Lawsuits are expensive too,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Yeah.
we wanna look out for safety. I mean, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, Just
I
how
think
we
need to
get there.
Figure out where to put
I
it.
hope you
and
don't
how to
miss
word
it.
No,
I'm just trying-
I wanted to
I'm
bring
not-
it up so we could talk.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. The
Aren't
more
we
safety
looking
there.
at Building up closer to the mountain, that this is really. a
Become
potential
worse.
housing.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more land up there do we have to develop?
Well,
50 years.
Highlands,
Highlands,
well,
But
too
the
much
houses-
beyond
but the
that.
Highlands plats already come through.
They're moving some dirt north of Spring Creek.
And those are already approved
Yeah.
plats, so you're not gonna change those.
There.
I don't think we have anything on the east side, except for the up by, excuse me,
Anyway.
Dan Hogan's and Jack Nixon's. We do
Yeah,
have
we have
those.
Dan Hogan and Jack Nixon's, the two potential, and Roger Dow, if he develops it up, we've got
Yeah,
3 spots there that are potential.
There's a park coming up there in that Eagle Nest, Eagle View area, just south of Providence Hollow. Or Little Baldy. There was an
We've
announcement
talked
on
about
that,
one, but never,
Not yet.
it's never settled. I think we put it, I would recommend that kind of one, that we put it down some wording and we add
If you want.
add one so that we're not adding it
Add it
to
to this.
subdivision one.
And I like the
That-
idea.
that
of
seems to be
whatever
more
there's an
substantive than-
agreement of is
We need to make sure
go
that
through it all and then
Right.
come
this
back.
gets through its
So I
process.
totally agree.
And I,
Into the motion.
Yeah,
but I think we can add that onto our list of
yes.
codes that we can bring up in their own,
He's
Amended,
in their own action.
And then
And so we're.
accept.
Noted.
we're a little
Let's move on.
halfway.
We'll note that in our future ones.
So we'll discuss that later, but it's on the,
I think.
On the
I like
record that it's an
Scarlett's idea of having engineering look at something that, I just know from developers, that kind of cost, I don't think they'll do that. But maybe there's other options for the safety.
There are some dangerous places
Yeah,
on the hill up there.
well, and
we can
But that's
keep
why
moving.
I didn't move up there.
I've got a lot of, people in the neighborhood that it's dangerous just because of stop signs, that they don't stop for.
And some people want more of them in,
That's it.
but they still won't stop
That's
for
against
it.
the law, you don't stop.
Well, I even stand out there, I even put a camera out there, they just wave to it as they go through. So anyway, I ask, for everybody, have to excuse me, I need to leave. And, so I'll turn over to Brian to continue through for us. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
So are we down to
We're down to
public improvements?
97
Chapter 11.
grades. 97 grades.
Right, that's where we just finished.
You wanna,
We'll do that later,
okay,
not do it.
any other concerns on, down to 104?
Oh,
Okay, we're on, FG and H, about 110. I'm not seeing,
nope.
any changes to that code. Same thing with the next page, line 170, 180s, 190s. Nothing on
No.
that page.
Next page to have it changed is 31.
30. That,
That's chapter 11-5.
okay, I have a question
Where?
on, 287, line 287 of, 11.4. Lighting, the developer's responsible for doing the lights for the city, is responsible for locating them. Do we have is there some code or standard of how much distance between lights is like half a mile? Is that about right? Between street lights?
Or at intersections?
I don't know exactly what,
Different lights are different
yeah,
light, so if you have a decorative light, they have to be closer together. If you have a standard, street lights, they're farther apart. The lighting is determining distance, and the style of pole is determining some of that distance.
What's the purpose of the lighting?
To reduce,
safety and-
yes, to increase safety and to reduce, those that would do something inappropriate in a dark alley.
Right, okay, well, that's a curiosity thing for me, that there, up in my neighborhood, there's a long ways in between streetlights. I just wonder if there's a standard.
What is there a section of code that just deals with street lighting, or is this it?
This is telling the developer they're
They're
responsible
gonna pay
for it.
for it.
And then in our standards and specifications, I don't remember if we cover lighting there or not, but, I think we do cover some, and we work with Rocky Mountain Power. The developers are supposed to work with Rocky Mountain and things like that in order.
And we order the lights
Yeah.
and coordinate their placement, and then the developer pays for the light.
Yeah, this is mainly to make sure the developer knows they're gonna pay for all of that.
Okay,
Okay, so what about policies? Are you happy with the policies?
well, I don't know what policies are, so, but it was a question that I just wanted to ask while we're there, but nothing we need to change with the code.
And then there's no, what I was trying to get at was, there's no other code to do with lighting. So it's not like we can push this off.
There's a
couple weeks,
standard.
But there's a standard policy that's there.
Well, the standards and specification manual, actually, even though it's not adopted actually, that's gonna change too. When we start making revisions, they will come back. We have to adopt that a little bit differently in the future. But our current standards and specification manual, while it's not adopted, it's referenced in here, and so that they know they have to follow that. Standards and specification.
But the staff controls that book, the contents of that book, the specifications, right?
To
There's
this
no,
point,
there's no body, an legislative body that controls that.
there will be. When we come back with revisions,
As,
it has
as
to
we,
be done
as
differently.
we updated it, it's a different process on the next update.
Well, that's gonna happen soon.
We hope so. We gotta get
They're gonna
through a lot of
soon?
code before
Yeah,
now and then, so.
Yeah. We don't have to belabor it, I just.
No, but it does bring up a point that
Yeah, it's pretty dark. For a lot of places.
in downtown, it's every block, you know, every major block, and it's real straightforward, and one of them goes out, it's real obvious, but it's not obvious in the subdivisions, up on the hill, any place.
There's
Yeah.
standard in your, where in the subdivision you live in.
I think you never pay attention, there's a light across the street, and I know there's one down the street, but I.
All right, we gotta keep moving
Just don't
here.
go out at night.
Brian.
Never going out in the day. Okay, we're passing up 287 and 11.4. And then we're going to jump next into 11.5, construction drawing. And this code is new state code.
No, well, this is because we changed, state code regulates the way we do development agreements. These are talking about administrative things, and so we put the development application in instead of saying the development agreement in the development agreement. So we changed this wording to the development application. So,
To align it with. state code.
yeah,
The development of a development agreement or development,
Currently agreement.
development agreement versus a development application. We're trying, what we've mostly been doing is development applications and calling them development agreements, and the state code is now defining development agreements much better. So it's state code.
And it
will be
does-
state.
it does reference that if the development is subject to a development agreement that as per state code is approved by the city council, then it references that, so.
Okay, down to line 40. State code changes.
Yeah.
Why is some of that highlighted and some of it just red?
Probably because that's where I highlighted it to
For the
put
comment,
my comment on there.
I just, for interest. What happens if we don't finish in 2 years?
That's why we had added the extension.
Well, no, I mean, what if you don't, after 3 6-month extensions, you don't finish, what happens?
You may have to go to the new code. You might have to build a different code.
Okay, so is there a penalty, a fine,
They lose their entitlements.
They do, and, the city has the option of foreclosing on their bond, on their remortgaging performance, and then installing the improvements. So there's a couple of different options if they fail.
okay,
Well,
it is just a question.
fail or just, what if somebody's plans are to take, pull a permit to do a remodel, and they know it's gonna take them 5 years to do it.
They should do it in phases.
But you're talking about an individual.
We're talking about a
We're
subdivision
talking about a
ordinance.
subdivision here. So I just wondered what happens to a developer when that happens? If they don't do it,
They run the risk of us taking their bond and us finishing it,
finishing the roads and,
public infrastructure. They risk running into having to do it to a new standard code and they would have to update it to that standard. There's some risks.
okay, all right, good, thanks.
Okay, we'll move down to line 48 on the next page. This is.
So I didn't
code
put
that
a
you want-
comment here, I just realized, the state code is pretty adamant about identifying what the essential minimum improvements are. We cannot stop somebody from getting a building permit if they have met the essential minimum improvements. So we have to be very careful. And the way we identified essential improvements prior in the black was a little bit was not quite specific enough. So we have changed it to ask for the same thing, but now we're saying the culinary water system shall be operational and provide adequate water quality and pressure for fire protection. Now, we're not telling the developer, you gotta put the whole thing in at this point. We're saying, you gotta be able to, because that's what the code calls out, is that they have to be able to provide protection. So that's what we're saying there. So they have to prove that they can to have adequate, we're just wording it, we're wording it in a manner that helps this essential minimum improvements align with the way the state code has it.
And for all three of these, number 1,
Yep,
number 2, number 3, and number 4.
yeah,
Okay.
because this is one point that we have had developers argue with us on. They've argued that we require too much at the minimum level, and they should be able to pull building permits quicker.
And you're, where are you?
On page, well, on line,
47.
yeah, 47. 1, 2, 3, and 4, on page 2 of 9.
11-5.
2 of 9, okay, all right,
Yeah,
okay,
and I apologize, I didn't put my comment on there for you.
okay, no, I'm good, I just couldn't find where you were. Thank you.
Okay, any concerns about the minimum requirements here? Okay,
And just so you know, I did check with both the building official and the fire marshal's office to make sure on those that that's what they felt like was needed, because the way the state code reads is we have to issue a building permit if they have met the essential minimum improvements for building code and fire code. So I checked with the building official and the fire marshal and said, how do you feel about these? And they said, that's what that's what we already would require. So that's why they're written the way they're written.
Okay,
okay, moving down to 11-5-3, line 84.
This is the one we talked about with Joe.
We talked about this one.
Okay. We're understanding there. And that includes all the way down to C4, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so mandatory, we're moving on to 11.5.4. Changes, Yes, sir.
Okay, on, let's see, line 142.
Okay.
Warranty period shall not begin until the city engineer certifies in writing. I couldn't find in here what the warranty period is for this infrastructure that's being put in. The developer has to warrant his road or whatever. Is it, it must be
1
stated
year's
someplace.
standard,
Pardon me?
1 year is our standard.
That's, state code is 1 year.
And is that stated someplace? I couldn't find it, but,
It's in state code, it's 1 year, but no, we didn't replicate.
okay. Okay, good, thank you.
We're now on, 11.5.5, 11.5.7. Wording's been changed from security, performance to improvement, completion assurance. This is state code requirement.
That's what the state code calls the term now. They've changed their
Right.
terminology, so that's what we're doing.
Okay,
And yes, all of this is written very similar to the way the state code reads.
row 196. If suspect soil is present, a longer bond is determined as determined by the city engineer. So what is suspect soil? And what does that mean?
We have an area that the soils are very hard to get proper compaction. And so while they may be able to withstand the first year, we can now, once we approve this, then we could say, because of the soil conditions in your area, we feel it may take up to 2 years for the road to fail. If it lasts longer than 2 years, so be it. But if we can prove that there is a valid reason why we feel like that warranty time needs to be extended, we are allowed to do that by state code. Generally, it's 1 year, but if there's a reason why we can extend it, that's
one of the reasons.
Can we extend, this is saying just 1 year extension.
No, this isn't defining the length of time.
yeah.
Okay, so
Longer
this-
period of time is determined by the city engineer.
Your city engineer may determine it be 5 years.
Okay.
But that's,
This is in order to avoid a Draper issue.
Mm-hmm.
The house is just. It's
or a fluke plate in St. George issue.
Okay,
Okay. I'm good, thanks.
okay, there's extra definition here up to line 208. Any other changes or concerns? Joe, you read this document intensely, you don't have any.
I said I read through it. I read it. I did read it.
Okay. Do you have any changes?
Just the one I noted.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move down to, we're still in 11.5, we'll move to the next page. Moving to 11.5.9. And, no changes to existing code. Moving to line 300s on the next page. And, no changes there. We're moving to the next page, line 340s, 350s, 360s, no changes there. Almost done, if everybody wants to get excited. Okay, some light duty changes here, around 30 and 31, 11.6.2.
Just, I'm sorry. What is recordation? Is that a word? Is that something that's been recorded? Is that what that means?
It's a process, isn't
What
it?
line are you on?
line 6 and, you know, all the way through this whole section.
1162, right?
Final plat recordation. Does that mean that we're recording the plat?
Yes,
Is that a word? It's used quite a bit in this section, but I never heard of it.
It is. It's the act or process of recording an instrument such as a deed or mortgage in a public registry.
Okay, good, thank you. I'm educated now. Thanks.
Where's your time while we're trying to pronounce it? We're gonna move to the next page. Changing from their discretion on line 52 to the request of the developer.
So I'm curious about that one, because it's the city staff that was making the request, and now it's changing to the developer.
concept plans. We cannot require a concept plan, but if the developer requests it, we have to review it.
Gotcha. that's
We,
what you said.
we can't say,
Okay.
no, we don't require those, so we're not going to do that. If they request it, we have to honor their request.
Gotcha. Okay.
1163 staff review. Changes look like they are state code. 1164 planning commission and land use authority action. Planning commission shall
And
consider.
this says land use authority. Should it say administrative land use authority to
Oh,
define it?
we probably should.
I think that's a change that should be clarified.
Yep.
That we're talking, because the planning commission is a land use,
Yep.
is a land use authority, but we're moving this to administrative land use authority.
What do you call that one again? Administrator, yeah,
Administrative land use
I need,
authority.
yes, we need to add the word administrative.
okay,
In from between 104 and 116. Anyway,
Yeah, I need to change that to the administrative.
administrative land use authority,
Mhm.
okay. All of them. Okay. Final plat recordation. Okay, we've got a change. All approvals given, paid, and if needed pursuant to state law, improvement completion assurance is in place. When we see completion assurance, are we talking about the bond, a bond? Okay.
but it doesn't have to be a bond. They could put up cash, they could put up other assurance. Letter of credit,
We have to give them options.
Okay.
Put up their neighbor's house.
if they had title to it.
Okay. Hate to tell you folks, but we might be done with changes.
So I think you just need to go back and,
I think you have 3 changes. You have,
Oh, how many do you have?
One,
you have the land use authority at the end, you have Joe's, and then you have Bob's in the paragraph that he had.
right, I didn't mark Joe tonight.
Okay,
Got et cetera.
I'm really hurt.
All right. What was the,
Are we adding force majeure? Recommendation? What do you think of that wording, Joe? Is that a magic word?
It is, it's French, actually.
not Latin.
So few
Yeah,
French words I know.
Is et cetera French as well?
Is what?
Et cetera, is that French as well?
No, I'm not talking about except just the force
I
majeure.
know, I was asking about, I thought we were just, we were just talking about bad French words.
That's how you say it in Spanish.
Really? Okay, so.
okay, so. But I've got,
Yeah, go ahead.
the things that we need to potentially make exception to is to remove the paragraph 6, rows 91 through 94 of 11-4-3, which is granting an exception to Grandview Drive and those guys for having sidewalks.
For clarification, are you making a motion?
No, I'm just reviewing the things that we need
Just
to.
making sure
These are
that.
gonna be amendments to the motion.
Right, these are the things that we talked about as being changes.
Give us number 2.
And then number 2 is, on 11-5-3, extension of time. Item C, and we're looking at, row 87, we want to strike, etc. And add. Do you have what Joe said, Scarlett?
Mhm.
What is it?
Well, were you gonna use Ryan's or what Joe said? Joe said, or any other act of nature beyond the developer's control, isn't that what you said?
Or any similar act
Similar act, that's what it was.
Or
beyond the
I didn't put similar, sorry.
similar act. Number 3, Bob,
similar act
beyond the developer's control.
beyond.
You're not gonna make 4/4 majority.
Okay, and the last
It
one
is
was,
an
it
understood term.
is in contract.
That's not in my vocabulary. I'm not sure what I mean.
Just means out of act of God, essentially.
And, Ryan, you mentioned one.
Administrative land use authority in that paragraph, it should be referenced as administrative
Well,
land use authority rather than. just-
Reference a set of line numbers, so the last one is showing up in line, it's 11-6-4. The last line number is 115. The first one is in line 95 of 11-6-4. You wanna change the the words land use authority to administrative land use authority,
Administrator.
administrative.
Okay,
And those are the 3
Those are the
changes that
3
we're
changes.
considering. Okay, I'm open to motions.
okay,
I'm open to a motion on what we should do with this, these code changes.
so I'd like to make a motion that we accept. Or that we recommend to the city council to accept the code changes as provided with the following exceptions.
Wait a minute. I thought we were,
Because this is, the other
I'm sorry.
method would have worked.
sorry,
if you
I'm
did it
sorry I
manually.
looked at you. Let's just. My understanding is that we were gonna make a motion,
Right,
okay? And that motion was accept whole document.
well, that was earlier.
Yeah, but we can do it this way, this is good.
This is the way we ended up deciding to go. Michael said that we'll just keep track of what we're gonna do and then make one motion.
Fine. Everybody comfortable with that, making one motion, and we're gonna include these 3 exceptions? Vice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
go for it.
Look at me.
You're vice. I made you vice, just now.
All right, I make a motion that we recommend to the city council the changes to the subdivision, or the subdivision amendments be accepted with the following exceptions.
I would probably say with the following changes.
Changes,
Yeah,
thank you. Following changes. In section 11-4-3, streets and street improvements, strike paragraph C6, which is rows 91 through 94.
excellent, okay.
And in section 11-5-3, completion of construction time limit, row 87, we strike the term etc. and add or any similar act beyond the developer's control
In place of the word accept.
in place of the word etc.
Or force majeure.
or force majeure.
Let the city council pick.
Okay, you got one more?
And in 11-6-4, planning commission and land use authority action, rows 95 through 116. We change every occurrence of land use authority to administrative land use authority.
Okay, do I need to put any conditions or anything else on that motion, onto that motion?
No, because you said as presented.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and we've got a second. All in favor? Passing this? Aye. Any opposed? And that include Mr. Hinkie is voting tonight or on this item. You have a gold star on his forehead. Is this?
That's his first one. No, it isn't.
Doesn't happen very often.
Not very often, but I have voted before.
Good. Well, I'd like to apologize to everybody for taking so much time. I thought everybody would have.
No, I
said they would.
appreciate you taking the time to read through it as well as you did.
Yes, thank you for being so thorough.
Yes, thank you. I'd make a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, we're not gonna do that. There are some
I second
issues.
it.
That's fine. We've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask of staff. And I think that it's for the good of the commission to know these. There is an agreement with, between the irrigation company or companies. Is there an agreement between the city and the irrigation companies that the irrigation system is used for stormwater control in part? Or is there an agreement to that effect? We were talking about irrigation tonight, and I just wanted to, seems like
No,
there was.
there is not a formal agreement that
Okay,
details it all out, to my knowledge.
so when the water comes down in the wintertime, it's piped around the irrigation system, the irrigation lot, the big ones, little irrigation ditches.
So the way that the whole thing is that the ditches get to accept the historical flow. When we started doing subdivisions, once the stormwater regulations came in, we started having our subdivisions take care of their own water. So most of the ditches that are accepting water are accepting the historic water that they've accepted all along.
Okay.
But we don't have I don't think we have a formal maintenance agreement, but we do have an agreement. We look at it in the spring and the fall with the irrigation company, right?
Okay, next question. How does the city go about, the process to add a new park to the city? How does the city go about? Is that something that goes through the city council? Or how does that go about? Like, what was the last park that was initiated?
Sure, let's say that it goes to the city council.
Let's say,
Sure.
It's land acquisition, right?
It's
The
land
city has to buy.
acquisition, done through the, Park Trail and Recreation Master Plan and then would be, done through
okay,
a process.
so we never require, it is not normal procedure to require a developer to include a park within a preliminary or final plan. Right? Oh, sorry. It's okay, John.
Well, depends on the type of development. If they were doing a PUD, the ordinance gives us the ability to require amenities and open space. The multifamily does as well, and the life cycle residential does. So there are occasions when we work with them on a certain percentage for open space. But in general, in standard, at commercial, we work with them as well. Not necessarily for parks, but we do work with them on landscaping and whatnot. But in standard single-family subdivisions, no, we don't generally require park property. We require impact fees.
Is there a park up in the Highlands? Is there a park slated for the Highlands?
There's not a park per se, but there's a trailhead and there's some other open space they've got set aside.
And they have donated that to the city.
I don't think so.
They have
This, the trail access would be right of way. We won't accept dedication until the completion of the project but anyway, but that's on their final plat, it's on the preliminary plat that you approved.
But
The planning commission.
it's land that I guess could have been developed for a price, and instead they've decided to give it to the city because for whatever reason they did, right? So that's what
Yeah,
happened.
access into the,
They're following,
Trail,
they're
yeah.
following the trails plan, master plan.
And so we bring them into the plans, the master plans, bring them into the street plans.
that's included in each of the staff reports that we go through. It talks about each of the master plans and how they're either in compliant or how that master plan is affecting them.
Okay. When the gentleman here on Copperfield, we're talking about the design of the homes. The design of the homes they talked about sounded like they're gonna be traditional or whatever we see in that part of town. A number of pitches on the roof and all that. Why do we allow, or why we have say as a planning commission on the design of the condominiums and the rental units over here, and they don't look at all. There's hardly any comparison between those homes down in that area and between here and there, the condos. Is that something that we can require? The roof style is completely different with these condos here. There's a gateway right behind us. And the style of the roofs and the final story is very different than the homes that are just another little way south. Why do we do that?
That's market preference driven.
That's what I'm
by the
saying,
Development community.
the market
But-
preference,
We
okay?
regulate, we regulate finishes, we regulate landscaping, we regulate a lot of things
Siding,
on single family attached to multifamily that we cannot regulate on just single family homes.
right, but what I'm saying is market driven, development on homes has got one style of roof. A more of a traditional style of roof. And the condos and rental units here, multifamily, they've got a different style. Can the planning commission in the future just designate the roof style?
Of a multifamily development.
Yep. Because we do have design.
You have more ability to do it on multifamily than you do single family.
Okay, but do we specifically have the ability to control the style of the roof? A design,
If they can, if they come in and they could prove that they were not going to have a successful product. Because case in point, we have some that are designed more traditionally. Those did not sell nearly as well as the ones that have the more modern,
okay, I'm glad to hear that.
according to the development community. I don't know, I'm not a real estate agent. So I don't know.
And building code would determine, weight and load of,
Mhm.
snow load.
Oh, yeah, right, I understand that, but we got two different designs on the roof. And one of them is on the condos and the multifamilies down here that, for the most part, the people in the city don't like. And I think that's part of it, is that they don't look like the rest of the city. You've got white walls, you see, as you drive down Gateway, you're going on Serpentine, and you drive down and there's just this huge white wall that sits there. It's like, we don't have anything else in the city that's even close to that. We don't, and you look up and it's not traditional roof, it's all these points in the air and stuff.
I
There are
actually,
some people that have different buildings on their same lot that are different roof, construction.
I actually have a neighbor that remodeled.
It's a very modern house,
Mhm.
yeah.
I had a neighbor that had a more traditional looking
Okay.
house and they remodeled it to have the
Yeah.
flatter
In fact, I
roofs
have, and another neighbor just remodeled their house to do that. And added on a lot, but
So
I got two neighbors that have that.
I'm gonna throw out one more question just because it came up during this. You say that you'll get complaints and complaints and complaints about a code. we can't do anything unless we change the code. Is there a way for staff to bring that to us for revisions?
We
Like,
do,
we
at
don't
this
know that-
point, we are bringing, some of what we've included in this one has brought, when we've
Based on
added those, we'll have others. Most code amendments either come because of state code change or staff identified the issue, whether that's our enforcement side of issue or complaint side of issue, we'll bring those codes. A lot of that's coming that way.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'll
So you
entertain.
have a motion and a second?
No, I didn't hear, I heard them, but it was an inappropriate time to bring them up. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion that I wanted to hear
I'm not
about?
gonna make one now. We're gonna stay here. for a while.
They're not debatable motions. You had a motion and a second.